I stood barefoot on the back deck of the beach house, phone pressed to my ear, jaw tight. Wind off the ocean slapped against my face. My dad's voice crackled through the speaker like this was just another call. I already sold the house, Jason. The papers go through next month. I gripped the railing with my free hand, knuckles going white. You what? It's for your brother. Trevor's in trouble again. He borrowed from the wrong people. We couldn't let him get hurt. I pulled the phone away, just to stare at it like maybe I misheard, then brought it back up. This is my house. You had no right. Nicole and I rebuilt this place from the studs up. It's not like that, he said, tone annoyingly calm. You already signed off. You just didn't read the last file. I closed my eyes, my gut twisted. You forged my signature. It was all ready. You just didn't pay attention. It's complicated. I didn't say a word, just ended the call and stared out at the water. My head buzzed. I'd been away for 3 weeks on a work trip, finally back home at the house Nicole and I had spent 2 years rebuilding. This house wasn't just a property. It was ours. Nicole and I saved for years, worked late nights, fixed every board and pipe with our own hands. This deck I was standing on, I sanded it one splinter at a time. Now it was gone, just like that, because Trevor ran his mouth to the wrong people. Again. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. An hour later, Nicole called. I could tell right away something was off in her voice. You're not going to believe this, she said. Guess who the buyer is? Don't tell me it's Trevor's drug dealer. Nope, it's someone I went to college with, Ashley Rivas. She recognized my name on the title and messaged me on Facebook. You're kidding. She didn't know it was a scam, but once I explained, she agreed to hold off on signing anything final. We've got time, for now. I sat down hard on the deck steps. What do we do? I asked. Nicole didn't miss a beat. We fight it. This isn't over. I looked out at the water again, calm on the surface, storm underneath. You're damn right it's not. I stood up, walked inside, and started digging through every file we had on the property. If they wanted a war, they just got one. Nicole handled the paperwork while I pulled out the old banker's box labeled Home Original Deed. My hands shook, but not from panic, pure boiling fury. And while I flipped through files, I kept thinking back to the first time Trevor took something from me. It was my 5th birthday. I'd begged for this black and red remote control truck for months. When I finally tore it open, I couldn't believe it. I played with it all afternoon. By the weekend, it was sitting in Trevor's room. He's just a baby, Mom told me, like that was supposed to explain anything. You're the older brother. Let him have it for now. That line, it never stopped. I lost track of how many times I heard it. My baseball glove disappeared next. Trevor needed it for t-ball. My turn to pick the Friday night movie? Canceled because Trevor threw a tantrum when I didn't pick The Lion King again. When I was 10, I wanted to join the robotics club at school. I even had a teacher backing me. But that week, Mom sat me down at the kitchen table. Trevor's therapy comes first, she said. We can't afford both. So he got his therapy. He got his ADHD meds. And just for good measure, he got a brand new gaming console to help with the stress. I got a brochure for summer chores and a reminder to be patient. I kept my head down. I wasn't loud, didn't argue. I figured if I just stayed responsible, maybe I'd earn something of my own one day. In high school, I made varsity baseball as a sophomore. Huge deal at our school. First game, I scanned the stands. Mom and Dad never showed. When I got home, Dad was on the couch, Trevor curled up next to him. Your brother had a panic attack, he said, flipping through channels. We didn't want to leave him alone. Right, I said. Makes sense. By the time I got my acceptance letter to State College, full ride, 4 years, Mom glanced up from folding laundry and said, Trevor's trying to get his GED. Can you help tutor him this summer? I moved out the next month. No fight, no big goodbye. I just left. And it was like they barely noticed I was gone. I remember the first time I told her about my brother. It was late. We were sitting in her car outside a grocery store, splitting a bag of tortilla chips because we couldn't afford dinner out. Sounds like he always got what he wanted, she said. Yeah, and I always got told to understand why. She looked at me and said, That's not normal, Jason. That's not love. That's just manipulation with a smile on it. She was the first person who ever said it out loud. That maybe it wasn't my job to carry all the weight so Trevor could screw up without consequence. That was the turning point. Right there in that car, I started saying no more often, even if no one listened. And the more I pushed back, the more invisible I became to my own family. Let him have it for now, Mom used to say. Yeah, well, now's over. Because I'm not the quiet one anymore. I'm the one tearing apart every lie they ever told me. And this time, I'm not letting go. I slammed the file drawer shut and sat on the kitchen floor, back against the fridge. Nicole crouched beside me, laptop open on her knees, cross-checking the sale documents. "Nothing new in the emails," she said, "but I've got Ashley stalling. We've got a few days to figure this out." I nodded, jaw tight. My whole body buzzed with this raw electric tension, like I hadn't unclenched my fists in hours. I met Nicole at the lake almost 8 years ago. She was standing next to a flipped windsurf board, soaking wet, hair stuck to her face, laughing like she didn't care who saw. I offered to help her get the sail back up, and she rolled her eyes and said, "Only if you promise not to mansplain it." The next week, she brought me a gas station coffee, handed it to me like it was nothing, then paddled off like a pro. By the end of the month, we were dating. I was 24, she was 22. We were broke, but stubborn. She waitressed at a seafood joint where the tips barely paid gas. I worked warehouse nights and pulled double shifts when I could. One night, she was cleaning out the garage and found my old busted surf leash and duct-taped board. She held it up and said, "Why don't we just start our own gear line? You already fix this crap better than half the stuff we buy." We laughed at first, then we didn't. We called it Salt Line. We printed the first batch of rash guards ourselves with a heat press she found on Facebook Marketplace. The house reeked like melting plastic for 2 days. I handled the shipping and materials. Nicole did the design. She had this eye for color and detail that made everything pop. We sold 3 units the first week, 5 the next. Then, nothing for a month. My dad found out and came over uninvited. He stood in our garage, looked around at the mess of boxes and test gear and said, "You need a real job. Trevor needs help, and you're chasing a fantasy?" I didn't even respond. Nicole just smiled and offered him a Salt Line sticker. He didn't take it. We kept going anyway. We poured every spare dollar into product. We shipped from our living room, ate ramen, drank boxed wine, fought over shipping labels. 2 years in, we were dead broke and thinking about calling it. Then we got an email from a small Australian supplier who'd seen our posts on some backwater surf forum, said they liked our grit, asked for an exclusive partnership. We didn't celebrate big, just signed the deal at our kitchen table while eating cold noodles and drinking the last of our wine. That was the pivot. Sales tripled, then doubled again. Suddenly, we were sponsoring local events, getting tagged by influencers we didn't even pay. We weren't rich, but we were solid. And 5 years after that first melted rash guard, we bought the beach house. The one with the rotting deck and rusted gutters. The one we knew we'd make our own. No handouts, no loans from family, just sweat, scraped knuckles, and every ounce of fight we had left. Nicole nudged me gently with her knee. "You still with me?" "Yeah," I said, pushing off the fridge and standing. "And I'm not losing this house over him." Nicole and I spent the next morning combing through every document we'd ever signed. The dining table looked like a lawyer's office. Contracts, copies, sticky notes everywhere. "Here," she said suddenly, sliding a folder toward me. "Look at this." It was a form labeled Transfer of Partial Ownership. My name sat neatly beside hers, printed and signed in black ink. Only, I'd never signed it. The pen stroke was too perfect, too practiced. My stomach turned. He copied it. Nicole's mouth tightened. "Your dad slipped this in during that dinner last month, remember? He said he needed your signature for insurance updates." I remembered. He'd handed me a small stack of papers while Mom was clearing plates. I'd signed without reading. Stupid, casual, like it was nothing. I could still hear him saying, "Just the usual stuff, Jay." Now here it was, the proof. Nicole pulled out her phone. "We're calling the police." I didn't stop her. I couldn't. The officer showed up that afternoon. Gray uniform, notebook in hand, serious eyes. We explained everything, laid out the documents. He didn't laugh it off or tell us it was a family matter. He took photos, asked questions, marked evidence. "That signature looks traced," he said, pointing at mine. "And your wife's, yeah, that one's a clear forgery. We'll file a report for attempted real estate fraud and signature falsification." When he left, I stood there in the middle of our half-finished living room, drywall dust still clinging to the baseboards, and felt like something cracked wide open inside me. We'd found this place 2 years earlier, a total wreck. Rotting deck, leaky pipes, a roof that sounded like it was falling apart every time the wind blew. But when we first walked through the door, Nicole smiled and said, "This is the one." Barefoot, hair tied up, standing on that splintered porch like she already saw what it could be. We rebuilt everything ourselves, late nights sanding floorboards, fighting over tile colors, eating cold pizza under a hanging bulb because the wiring wasn't done yet. We laughed through it all. It was ours. My parents only visited once. Dad wrinkled his nose, said, "Why waste money on this dump?" Mom agreed. "You should have asked us first. We could have helped you find something decent." I remember looking around at the walls we'd painted together, the smell of fresh wood and salt air, and thinking, help? From you? No thanks. And now? They'd tried to sell it right out from under us. To clean up Trevor's mess? Again. That night, I called my parents. I didn't yell, didn't even raise my voice. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you do that?" My dad sighed like I was being unreasonable. "Trevor messed up again, Jason. We couldn't let him get hurt. So you forged my name." "We just panicked," Mom said in the background. "We thought we could fix it before you found out." "Fix it?" I said. "You were stealing from me." "Don't say it like that," Dad snapped. "It's not like we meant harm." I laughed once. Short, bitter. "You forged legal documents. You sold our home. What did you think that was?" They went quiet. Then Mom said softly, "Trevor was tricked. He didn't know." "Of course he didn't," I said. "He never knows." Nicole was standing beside me, arms crossed, listening. Her face said everything I couldn't. I hung up before either of them could say another word. When the police followed up the next day, they said the investigation would move forward. Fraud, forgery, attempted sale without consent, all of it. My parents pleaded ignorance in their statement, said they didn't understand what they were signing, that it was all for Trevor. No remorse, no apology, nothing but excuses. I went out to the deck that night, the same one we rebuilt plank by plank, and looked toward the dark water. The wind hit hard, cold and fast. I didn't feel a thing. They'd crossed the line for good this time, and I was done pretending family made it okay. The ocean wind didn't stop blowing that night. It rattled the windows and banged the shutters like the house itself was angry. Nicole stayed inside, talking quietly with the officer on speakerphone. I stood out on the deck, letting the cold settle in. My mind kept replaying every time Trevor had blown up his life, and how my parents always rushed to pick up the pieces. He dropped out of college after 1 year, said school wasn't his vibe. 2 months later, he bought a motorcycle on a credit card. No license, no insurance. 3 weeks after that, he wrecked it outside a bar, broke his collarbone, and left Dad with a $12,000 hospital bill. They paid it. Of course they did. Then came the jobs, landscaping, retail, temp work. He never lasted more than a few months anywhere. It was always someone else's fault. Toxic boss, unfair schedule, didn't like the vibe. In 2018, he got into crypto, claimed he was building generational wealth. 6 months later, he'd lost 40 grand, money he didn't have. My parents took out a home equity loan to bail him out. When I called Dad about it, he said, "He's fragile, Jason. He didn't have it as easy as you." Easy? I was working warehouse nights while studying full time. I paid my own rent, my own tuition. I didn't have anyone waiting to rescue me when I screwed up. Nicole once said my family treated me like a backup plan and Trevor like a glass ornament, too delicate to touch. She was right. The final straw came last year. Trevor started hanging around this guy named Darnell, ran investment seminars out of hotel conference rooms. I looked him up. Total scam artist. Fake LLCs, lawsuits everywhere. I warned Dad. He brushed it off. 2 months later, Trevor lost another $200,000. Money he didn't own. Money he promised investors he'd double. That's when my parents panicked. That's when they tried to sell our beach house behind our backs. They didn't just cross a line, they set it on fire. Nicole and I sat down that night and made a decision. We wouldn't press full charges. The detectives said they could push it to grand fraud, maybe even jail time. But I couldn't stomach watching my parents hauled away in cuffs. Still, the report stayed open. My dad got suspended from his job at the bank while they investigated the forged paperwork. When it came out that he'd signed off on false documents, they let him go. 30 years of work, gone overnight. Mom started cleaning houses for cash. She called once, left a voicemail I never answered. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "We were just trying to fix Trevor's mistake. That was the problem. It was always Trevor's mistake. And somehow, it always became mine to forgive. So we blocked their numbers. No calls, no emails, nothing. Nicole changed the locks and put up new cameras around the property. She told me, "We protect what's ours now. No one else gets to touch it." For the first time in my life, I didn't argue. I didn't feel guilt or pity or that old pull to smooth everything over. I was done being the dependable son who cleaned up the wreckage. They'd spent decades building Trevor's safety net out of my silence. Now, it was gone, and I wasn't going back to fix it. Nicole and I were working on the guest room when my phone buzzed. Covered in drywall dust, I glanced at the screen. Cousin Melanie. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. I answered with a flat, "Hey, you know your folks sold their house, right?" she said, like she couldn't wait to drop the news. I wiped my hands on my jeans. No, didn't know, don't care. They moved into that old rental by the gas station off Route 12, with Trevor. It's a dump. I stayed quiet. Your mom's working 3 jobs now. Cleaning, stocking shelves, even tutoring little kids. Your dad's doing overnight security for some warehouse. I gave it 2 seconds, then said, "Okay, and?" She sighed. "Just thought you should know." I hung up without another word. A week later, my aunt called. She opened with, "I'm not taking sides, but," which is how you know someone is taking sides. "They're struggling, Jason. Can't you help them out a little? They're family." I didn't hesitate. Family doesn't steal from you. Then I ended the call. Nicole handed me a folder with a raised eyebrow. Guess who emailed again? I flipped it open. Trevor. Subject line, "You ruined everything." The email was a wall of nonsense. No greeting. Just, "We could have fixed this quietly. You didn't have to blow it up. You destroyed our family. You got Dad fired. You humiliated Mom. Hope the beach house is worth it." I snorted. "He really thinks we did this." Nicole nodded. "Keep reading." At the bottom, the real reason he wrote, "I need $50,000. This new deal is solid. Real estate flip, foolproof. Just need a stake to get started." I closed the folder and walked it straight to the shredder. Nicole was already 1 step ahead. She slid a glossy pamphlet across the table. Community credit counseling, real solutions for real debt. "That's the only thing they're getting from us," she said. I laughed once, hard. Perfect. We mailed it that afternoon. No note, no return address. From then on, we watched everything unfold from a distance. Word spread fast in town. My dad had been a respected guy at the bank. Once the fraud story got out, that changed quick. Nobody looked him in the eye at the grocery store anymore. My mom kept her head down, worked all the time, barely showed up to family stuff. Trevor? Still hustling? He posted a new coaching site last month. Charged people $190 for a webinar on how to build passive income. It was a recycled PowerPoint he probably stole from YouTube. He blamed us for the failure of that too. Nicole caught a post he made on some sketchy forum, calling us traitors who turned their back on blood. Blood. Like that was supposed to mean something after everything. Nothing changed. They were still the same people, just more broke and more bitter. And I didn't feel sorry. Not even a little. 1 year later, Nicole and I were back on the deck. Same spot, same view. Waves rolled in, heavy and slow, smacking against the rocks below like they had nowhere else to be. The house stood solid now. New roof, reinforced deck, fresh paint. Every inch of it earned. Nicole passed me a mug of coffee and curled her legs up under her. We sat there in silence for a while, breathing in the ocean air, letting the wind carry off what was left of the chaos. She broke the silence first. "Think we made the right call?" I didn't even have to think. I nodded. "We chose each other. That's all that matters." The police report came in a few weeks after everything settled. My parents didn't just lie. They planned it. Told the realtor Nicole and I were moving overseas, made up fake job offers, even claimed we were behind on mortgage payments. And Mom? She walked around the neighborhood saying we were drowning in debt, begging people for help, acting like the heartbroken mother of an ungrateful son. But nobody bought it. The same neighbors who once waved at her from their lawns turned away. She walked alone after that. I ran into her once. Grocery store parking lot, middle of the day. She was coming out of that discount chain by the freeway, pushing a half-filled cart, eyes fixed on the ground. We locked eyes for maybe 2 seconds. Her face was hollow, older, smaller than I remembered. She didn't speak, neither did I. That night, Nicole sat next to me at the kitchen table and said, "Let's do something better with this place." I looked at her. "Like what?" She held up a flyer from one of the local schools. Kids' summer programs. "What if we hosted water sports camps here? For kids who never get the chance?" Something in me eased when she said it, like a knot finally came loose. So, we got to work. Cleaned out the old storage shed, turned it into a gear room, ordered life vests, paddle boards, wetsuits, put together flyers, reached out to schools, got the first group signed up. They're coming next weekend. Our life isn't fancy, it's not easy, but it's honest. And every part of it, we built ourselves. As the sun dropped into the water, orange and low, Nicole leaned her head on my shoulder. "We made it," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, wrapping my arm around her. "We did. Would you have forgiven your parents after something like this? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story hit home, like and subscribe for more.